longer than anyone I know. He shares my dreams. I hope that someday we'll share our home. I found love to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. We are still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds. I know we'll be alright this time. Darling, just hold my hand. Be your girl, you'll be my man. And I see my future in your eyes. Well, babe.
So I took this doubling every year and extrapolated it 10 years from 1965 to 1975, from 60 components to 60,000 components on a chip.
First thing you have to tell him is, guys, we've been giving you a free ride for 30 years while you write your crummy software and we made it faster, right? That's over.
The future is parallel. Single cores are not getting any faster.
So welcome back to CSE142L. So today we are going to talk about a different topic, performance. Actually, the very first topic that we want to discuss in computer architecture, and that's actually the reason why you are here. But before we start, a slide that you will continuously see this quarter, every lecture, almost every lecture, is actually the big picture, because this is something everyone to computer architecture should always remember. The big picture of the world of computation is that we are living in a world that every computer is pretty much a von Neumann computer. So what does that mean by a von Neumann computer is that your processor has three types of main components: processor, memory, and storage. And whenever you need to execute a program, so first of all, if you have a program that you want a computer to execute, it has to be presented somewhere in a system first, in a persistent storage. And the persistent storage could be your hard disk drive, could be your solid state drive. And a program composed of two different parts: the code, which contains your instructions, and the instructions are the commands you want the processor to do, and the data that you want the instruction to operate on. So whenever you want to execute a program, someone is responsible for loading this program into a memory. So in most modern systems, it's typically your operating system. However, there are also cases that your computer system doesn't really have an operating system. Then maybe some kind of firmware program would load the program for you into the memory. And then once your program presented in the memory, your processor can fetch instruction from the memory location and it looks into this instruction. If the instruction wanted to interact with data memory, then that's the time you are going to get the data from the memory into your processor. So that's the whole idea of von Neumann architecture. And why people love von Neumann architecture is because, as you can imagine, if what presented in a memory is different, then your computer can have a totally different function. So the good thing is that by installing different stuff into a memory, the same hardware can use for different purposes. So that's why people embrace the idea of multi-node architecture. And but most of the time you will feel like, oh wait, I don't write machine instructions directly. So if I write a C program, it's typically that the compiler would figure out that what the programmer wants to do. So typically there are several types of operations that the programmer wants to do. For example, you want control flow operations, you need logical operations, and arithmetic operations, memory access as well. And then the compiler figures your demand and translate those into instructions that your processor can support. So that's how compiler creating instructions from your code. And we also know that to have your program function correctly, you need to have the right data. So it's also the compiler's responsibility to get some initial data in the memory before your program can start executing. So that's how you form a program with both instructions and data inside the memory. And this slide I didn't show in the last time, but to give you a better idea. So the whole idea about the instruction set architecture is that we just give you an abstraction that you will have by using this x86 instruction set architecture, you actually have a computer that supports this many instructions. And what you will do is that you will its functional units will fetch data from this set of registers, and you have this space of memory for you to use. So that's the whole idea of this abstraction. But in fact, how we implement this ALUs, how we implement the support of this memory space is beyond the scope that the programmer should know. So that's why this abstraction is fancy and good. And we also show you another motivation, and probably the main motivation as a computer scientist or a computer engineer, you want to be, or a software programmer, you want to be in this class is because, like for this one, although it seems like if I have the option set to 1, would make the program higher complexity, more operations to perform. However, as you remember in the last lecture, having this inside your program would actually make the whole program a lot faster, 4 times faster, right? Why is that? So that's the bazaar that we want to tell you later in this quarter. And that's why I think it's really important for you to keep staying in the class. And one of the reasons is probably this, right? If you think about the processor in your computer system, right? Processor and memory, they are actually not aligned in their speed. So the evolution already tells you that, well, in the past evolution, processor speed kept going up, but memory did not. So there is a huge gap between your processor and memory. So that's one of the main challenges in designing your program. And that's why the algorithm complexity kind of failed, because you can imagine as long as there is something involved in the memory, then it takes thousands of times of the latency compared against your processor. So in this way, right, so algorithm complexity works out only if every operation takes the same amount of time. But in this one, you already see, well, at least memory operation is taking a lot longer, right? So everything involved in memory would break the assumption that algorithm complexity is based on. So that's why part of the reason why algorithm complexity doesn't work out in real world very well in a lot of cases. And but even with this, right, even you are the best programmer, there are still challenges that we are interfacing. So for example, the hardware technology doesn't allow us to keep scaling our processor and GPUs anymore. And we are falling behind the demand of large language models, for example. So that's why you can't actually host like a ChatGPT at home, because you're not able to provide that kind of computation power that is necessary for hosting that service. So for this class, although I don't know the answer yet, but hopefully that will inspire you in the future to invent some kind of new computer system that allow everyone to host their own ChatGPT. But before we doing that, One thing this is just right after lunch, right? And a lot of you are on campus, so I want you to spend 3 minutes to discuss with your friends regarding where do you typically go for lunch on campus and why?
Really far away from here. Yeah. I guess this. You're like required to, yeah.
All right, I heard, okay, so I guess, it's about time, right? So, okay, before we enter the main topic, I want to hear from you. Well, I found some interesting answer from people online. So some people saying that, Panda Express because it's cheap, quick, and consistent. Agree with that? Okay, some people saying about 30 birds for a pizza slice. Why? I saw this for chicken wings. Why pizza slice? Okay. Someone saying the trolley station. Someone, can you tell us why? Okay, so someone saying that the pizza slice in 30 birds is actually cheaper, and some people saying the Tapioca Express because of consistent. You know, I have a friend who got his PhD in the EC department, and starting from day 1 to the last day, for his commencement, he eats Panda Express. Sorry, not Panda Express. Tapioca Express every day. Did he love it? No. He said that recorded it right. But anyway, he said the popcorn chicken is consistently bad every day. All right, what else? What do you guys eat? Okay, wow. Okay, you have $9, you have to spend it. That's a good reason. Any other choice? Cheaper, consistent. Anything that's like cheap. Anything that is cheap, right? Everything is expensive. So, you know, it's so expensive in a way, yeah, that well, so today I'm supposed to eat my lunchbox, and actually I'm supposed to have an office hour yesterday, but last night when I make my lunchbox, I accidentally cut my finger. So that's why you see this one here, and that's why I have to cancel that office hour, because I wasn't it kept bleeding last night, and I was like a little bit worried, but at least today I'm here, I'm still alive, right? So that's good, but you know, ironically, I forgot my lunchbox at home today. So does it make sense, right? You bled, and then, you know, anyway. Yeah, but you know, it's just because things are so expensive these days, right? So in terms of choosing the lunch option, people want, surprisingly, I didn't hear like delicious as an option here. Because there's nothing can be called delicious around UC San Diego. Agreed? Okay. Yeah, yeah, and I can tell you my story. When I was a student at UC San Diego, to be honest, I am the one who wants to live San Diego, like who wants to leave San Diego. So when I graduated, my first job was actually in North Carolina because at that time I tell people, yeah, I don't like San Diego that much because the food is terrible. And then when I go to North Carolina, 2 years later, I'm back to Southern California. I don't want to tell you too much about it, but when I live in Raleigh, a city in North Carolina, when I figure out like even cold food tea can have a long line, and I was a little surprised, and I tell people what were I complaining about San Diego at the time, right? So if you want to find worse food, there will definitely places around the world will give you worse food. But the reason why we want to discuss this is because when you make any decision in lunch, there are quite a lot performance metrics that you are considering, right? So for example, cost is one of them. How much money, right? Speed of service. How fast can I get my food, right? So like Subway, Panda Express are probably the ones that I would go if I'm really short on time because it's when you just step in, go with the line, and within a minute, typically you should be able to get everything done, right? But for others, if it's rush hour, probably not, right? So and consistent, right? So you won't have a big surprise, right? So very stable quality of service. So those are the metrics that people would talk about in making decisions. And today we are also going to talk about when we talk about a computer program has good performance, what does that mean? What are the metrics that we actually care about? And the equation for us to evaluate the performance and what would affect each factor in performance. So those are the stuff that we will talk about. Okay, some people explain that the reason trolley station and he say to leave the campus is something better. All right, so performance is a very interesting thing, right? So sometimes you want to tell people that I studied at a best school in the United States, right? So you will put out a lot of rankings. So like for example, best national university rankings, this is from US News. They say that Princeton is the best. Do you agree with that? Okay. And best computer science school, okay, MIT, right? I'm a computer scientist. I agree. Okay, MIT is pretty good. And see this, right? Different ranking has different matrices. So UC San Diego can be top 1, right? I work for UC Riverside, so there is also a ranking that you can find that UCR is number 1. So you can find various ways to tell people that, well, this is the best performing one. This is the best ever something that we ever produced, right? In different aspects. So if you allow people to use different standards to evaluate different things, then it's hard to judge if this is really good or not. That's why we need a definition regarding what does that mean by a better performance. But before we start, let me show you this demo real quick. So, as I tell you, right, earlier this year, I spent a lot of time in Google, and I was lucky or unlucky in the time that the whole company is transitioned from search-oriented to BART-oriented. So we spent a lot of time figuring out the difference between BART and ChatGPT. I don't want to say publicly, but I really want to say that BART is better. Oh, okay. So here's the thing, right? So right now, I put an answer. How important is computer architecture in computer science? So as you can see, BART just gave you the whole answer with 182 words within 6 seconds. And now, if you look at ChatGPT, right? Finally, it takes 18 seconds to give you 170 words. So this is the quick demo I gave you. But why do we have this demo? Because I really wanted to try our very first peer instruction question. So again, right, we say that class is based on peer instruction, And so it has 3 processes. And today, for people in person here, I want you to go through this process. And now, make sure that you can log in to the Poll Everywhere app, which you're supposed to download, or you already have it with your UC San Diego account, and you will now have at least 90 seconds to answer the question. So if you don't have time, so the top right hand side of the slide has the web address that you can, if you have a laptop computer, you can connect through the web. And if you have your app, you can also use Home 110 as the postfix of the address to log in. And you should be able to log in using your at UC San Diego account. And then let's see how many of you have successfully done it.
Sorry, so how many are we supposed to? Okay, yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I see 7 of you, 8 of you answered. How many of us are here? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, we have 12 answered. You have the issue?
Yeah.
Okay, you can try your own. What do you do? Okay, so we need to register the class. Okay. Okay, so if you keep having this issue, just send me an email, I will double check. Okay. All right, so looks like we got sufficient amount of votes, right? Okay, so let's see, if you haven't voted, you are logged in, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see, what are you guys saying? Okay, so look at this, right? So we have 4 of using it's A. For C and D, each get 6 votes, and for E, we got 2, right? So now it doesn't look like we have a consensus from the whole classroom. So the next stage is that now grab people around you and discuss the answer. And once you guys have some idea, then vote again so that we know that, okay, we are getting there. Go, discuss.
Little question. So, say I didn't see total is keeping out. So the book says response time is the time between the start and completion of the task. Is that the same thing? It's like the start, total time it takes to start.
Oh, that's different. Response time is part of the,
Okay, it's like more intermediary response. Like continuous.
right. Well, so that's interesting, right? So, okay. Question? No. Okay. What's the difference between 1 and 3? That's a very good question. We can talk about it later.
This the response time is like how long it takes to start a response?
So there are different definitions of that. Okay, so. All right, put your bolt in 10 seconds. If you haven't done it, do it right now. And if you have logging issues, don't worry, just send in an email, I will double check because it needs some registration process. And sometimes I think when people register late, it's hard, it's the population of the named list is also late. All right, so looks like after discussion, more people think it's C, so C I believe it means 2, right? Okay, what is response time? So from the definition of the book, what does that say?
The time between the start and completion of the task.
Okay, the time between the start and the completion of the task. Right, so that's one definition of response time. So there are several different types of response time. So what do you mean by, okay, so sometimes when you feel like some people is responsive, what does that mean?
Give input, they give input back.
Right, so that's another definition of a response time. So the response time has a lot of different definitions, but the thing is that the response time is actually the time, well, depending on your application. So for interactive applications like ChatGPT or Bard, typically it means that the time I give them a command and the time I started to get a response from them. So that's the response time for interactive application. And what does that mean by end-to-end latency? So someone being responsive doesn't mean someone who can complete the whole task efficiently. Do you agree with that? Like, okay, so you must have this experience, right? Some of the department advisor, they respond to your email promptly, but they cannot get your business address promptly. You have that experience, right? Typically the case, right? So, but sometimes you will meet some kind of advisor, like you send the advisor an email and they probably don't respond to you pretty fast, but once they respond to you, everything is done, right? So that's what you can see, right? So that's called end-to-end latency. So the end-to-end latency is actually when you submit a job and the time between the time you submit a job and the time everything is done. That's called end-to-end latency. From beginning to the end, that's end-to-end latency. Response time is your perception that something is acting. Something is start acting. That's response time. So if you look at this, is Bard doing a better job in terms of response time? No, right? Because if you look, if you remember that video, like when I click the answer, what does Bard do? It's just hanging there, and you feel like, is Bard really doing anything? Right? But surprisingly, like 6 seconds later, they just give you 3 or 4 paragraphs that's done. Like, the answer is there, right? That's Bard. How about ChatGPT? ChatGPT is very talkative, right? Once you click the keyboard, it starts talking, and so I feel like the formula of ChatGPT is pretty much like this. Like you give it ChatGPT an answer, and they will give you a very nonsense first paragraph, which will be applicable to all universal questions. And then The second paragraph, you start to see ChatGPT generating something more meaningful. And finally, the summary is probably the one that we want to tell, right? So that's ChatGPT. But for the whole process, it takes you 18 seconds to see what ChatGPT really wants to say. So in terms of end-to-end latency, who's better? BART is better, right? How about the throughput? What does that mean by throughput? Okay, total work done in a given time. The in a given time frame is very important keywords here. So it means that if I give you guys the same amount of time, what the total amount of work can each of them do it? That's called throughput. So if you look at ChatGPT, right, for this particular question, if I ask ChatGPT again and again, right, saying that if I have a minute, how many tasks can ChatGPT finish? Probably about 3, right? How about BART? 10, right? Because each takes 6 seconds. So the throughput of BART is probably 10 versus ChatGPT 3. So the throughput is actually a lot better on BART side. And the end-to-end latency is also on the BART side, right? But the response time, right? So that's why ChatGPT sometimes is more successful because people like when you are hanging out with people, right? You like to have people who is more responsive about your question rather than you throw a question and the whole atmosphere got silent for a minute and someone really give you an answer, right? Like you probably prefer more responsive ones, right? So ChatGPT actually does a better job than that. It's more like human, right? But BART is indeed a prompt. And then finally the quality of the result. What do you think? That's hard to judge, right? But so I would say for this question, at least, well, the reason why I want to go through this question is that we want you to figure out there are different metrics that you can judge something is good or not, right? Like this 4 things, right? Even with this 4 things, we can see some of them is better, some of them is worse, right? So if you don't have a stand-up first, if you don't put everyone on the same page regarding what we are talking about right now, it's hard to say, well, this is better or this is not. So for now, when we talk about performance, right, it's really important that we have to choose the right metrics to compare. And also this metric must be able to provide a quantitative comparison. So for example, quality of result. That's a very vague thing, right? You cannot really quantify the quality of result. So that's probably not a good enough metric in this class in particular. So for this class right now, we are starting with this metric first. So right now, when we are talking about performance, we are mainly talking about end-to-end latency. So what does that mean by end-to-end latency? It is the total amount of time that takes for you to execute the whole program. That's end-to-end latency. So if you have done your reading, you must know this performance equation. So right now, I want you to spend some time to practice this performance equation and show me your outcome of learning from reading. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so looks like B is a popular answer. So, but this is the first time we do peer instruction, right? So let me give you more chance to talk with your friends. So, let's try to do a quick discussion in 90 seconds, and don't forget to vote again.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yes.
All right, so let's wrap up in 15 seconds. You haven't voted. Make sure that you voted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay. Oh wow, magic, right? So now everybody kind of like agree it's B. So I want to invite people who change his mind or her mind or their mind. Anyone would like to share your experience of peer instruction? Anyone who changed your mind? And okay,
Well, I actually guessed it correctly.
you guessed it correctly. Okay.
Too slow.
Okay.
So, my main mistake, I guess, is we need to convert the gigahertz to clock speed stuff, right? So you need to take the reciprocal of the gigahertz to the 9 for the clock speed value. And then
Okay, so first of all, show me like, okay, so, well, considering now you are answering a midterm, right? How do you score full credits with this question? What was the very first thing to do?
split it into 3 equations.
Okay, to do it into equations, but what equation, what do we use here? Performance equation, so what is performance equation?
Execution time.
Execution time.
Everything count.
Okay, so first of all, right, so when we say performance here, we define the end and latency, but larger is worse, actually, in terms of time. So, turns out the performance actually is the reverse of your execution time. But to get that performance, you have to know the execution time first. So the execution time is equal to
Instruction count.
instruction count, right? How many instructions the program would take, and
Cycles per instruction.
cycles per instructions, and
Clock speed.
the cycle time, or say the clock speed, right? So, and typically when we say how many gigahertz, it's actually the frequency, and frequency is the reverse of your the cycle time. So if we are giving you, and most of the time that's what we are giving, like gigahertz, megahertz, right? You have to have reverse it to get the cycle time, right? And there's a quick way of calculating it. Like typically, if it's 1 gigahertz, it's actually 1 nanosecond, right? So if we say it's 2 gigahertz, it's half nanosecond. If it's 4 gigahertz, that's a quarter of a nanosecond, right? So in this way, you can count it very quickly. And we just typically write this way, right? ET equal to IC times CPI times cycle time, right? So that's how we typically would write down as a performance equation. And you might be wondering, like, why performance equation look like this, right? But again, if you remember the big picture of Monimo architecture, it's your processor is queued instructions by instruction. So it does make sense in a way that depending on how many instructions in total we need to execute and how much time it takes to execute each instruction would give you the total amount of time you need to execute the program. However, for the second part, how long does it take to execute an instruction actually has two elements. One is how many cycles on average we need to execute an instruction, and second, how much time it takes for each cycle, right? So that's the whole idea of execution time. So let's get back to this question, right? So we have execution time equal to instruction count times CPI times cycle time. And we have a total of this amount of instructions, and on average, the cycle per instruction is 20% of them would take 4 cycles, 20% of them would take 3 cycles, and 60% of them would take 1 cycle, right? And if your cycle time is 1/4 gigahertz, that's how you get 2.5. Okay. So now let's do it one more time. So if I have this following program, can you tell me how much time it takes to run the C code? So the left hand side is the C code and the right hand side is x86 assembly. Can you tell me how much time to execute this function? All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so in the very beginning, okay, we see there is more of using is 12, well, it's C. So why don't you spend like a 90 seconds discussion to figure out the answer, and let's see what's after.
Seems like it's shown as I will, but it's where you must consider the average. Stuff. So the main thing is you can do like instruction count with like the documentation on the property. That you just need to count, what are memory access. One memory access one job whenever I'm not remembering.
The first one, yeah, my password.
All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so look at, oh wow, see, that's the power of peer instruction. So now everyone is believing it's C. So who made a transition and would like to share your thoughts with us? Who changed his mind and or her mind or their mind and would like to change? Would like to share? Okay, so what does that mean by count is set to, this is million, trillion, right? What does that mean by the count is set to 1 trillion? Yeah, but okay, so for this particular question, right, if I said the count is set to 1 trillion, what does that imply? Total instruction count, or okay, so that's interesting, right? So if you look at this S86 code, how many instructions are there? 5 instructions, right? 5 S86 instructions, right? But if I set the count is set to 1 trillion, what does that mean is that the whole loop is going to iterate for 1 trillion times. Agree? And each iteration in this 1 trillion times, 1 trillion times would execute this amount of instruction. And if you look at this instruction, so the total number of instructions you need is actually 1 trillion times 5, because you have 5 static instructions that implements each iteration. So when you compile your program, those instructions in a compiled program, they are called static instructions. But when you execute the program, how many instruction instances that you executed are called dynamic instructions? So in this case, you would have a total of 1 trillion times 5 dynamic instruction instances. And within this 5 trillion dynamic instruction instances, there's one of them as memory instruction, which takes 4 cycles. You can consider this is probably like your type A instruction in the previous question, right? And then for type B instruction, there is 1 as well, right? So if you have 1/5, that's 20%, right? So both the first and the second, they have 20% of the instruction. And the rest of the instruction, they are simple arithmetic instructions, take just one cycle. So if you think about this, right, it's pretty much identical to the previous question. And so you can pretty much get the same calculation. And again, you want the average CPI, you want the total number of dynamic instructions. So the purpose of this question is connecting your concept about performance equation with the real program. Because most of the time you just look at the number that I gave you, but that's not the real practice that you will interface every day. In fact, what you will interact every day is that, okay, I give you the program, you need to have a rough idea how many instructions that this program would take to implement. And then how many times are you going to loop and run so that you can get a rough idea how much time for the total program to execute. So for this particular program, the same equation applies, but you need to have some more work to do before you can apply this performance equation, is to figure out how many dynamic instruction instances that would take and what the breakdown of instructions within this program. So particularly in this program, it's 2.5 seconds as well. All right, so I guess we are all now masters of performance equation, but I wanted to try more. And the next topic is that, sometimes I hate Asian parents. A lot of you here are Asian, not being racist, but I have a lot of friends living in the Bay Area. I don't know how many of you are from Bay Area, but I hate Bay Area. Although I worked for Google for 3 months, but the only part that I don't like about Bay Area is that every Sunday, like you can hear the parents are comparing against their kids, right? Like, oh, my kids know how to play violin. Okay, my kids know how to play piano, right? I took him to the soccer. I took him to the baseball, right? So like everything can be a measure of comparison, and there are a lot of after-school learning center nearby the whole area, which because everyone wants their kids to be in math Olympics or something, right? So people like to compare. So unfortunately, in computer architecture, we goddamn love comparisons, right? So, but again, if you want to compare, there must be a standard way of comparison. So please show me your understanding about the standardized way of comparison in computer architecture through answering this question. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. Are you able to join now?
Yeah.
What's the metric? What's the metric?
Honestly, I think I can start. I just try that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, but at least it works out. Okay, override. So if you haven't voted, vote right now. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see. Okay, normal distribution, right? That's what I like. So it means that we definitely need some kind of discussion. And typically when people pick the answer C, that means that we don't know. All right, so why don't we just go discuss with your friends for another 90 seconds.
So that's what I would have been doing that was it's the difference. I think it's the only reason it's the way it's written. I want it's it's not too like like this. But it's very hard. I guess so this like goes a little bit so how many people receive job? Yeah, so it's very happy to watch. But what do you have to and then you just like you cancel these out.
All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Let's see what's after the discussion. All right, so the answer is C. Interesting. Can someone tell me why do you think the answer is C? Anyone want to share your thoughts? You just guess, okay, that's why people pick C, right? Okay, so what do you have? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can check together, right? So maybe it's also my mistake because I just made a slide a few days ago, so I didn't check the math completely, but we can try together. Okay, tell me what's the definition of speed up? So in computer architecture, right, we know people bluffing a lot. Like people keep saying that my processor is better than the other one. Okay, without giving a standardized way. So one of the greatest contribution about David Patterson and John Hennessy is that they define the standardized way of comparing performance in computer architecture. So as we said, right, the performance is defined by 1 over execution time. Because the shorter the time, the better the performance. So if we want to say performance y over x, right? Speed up of y over x is actually the performance of y over performance x. But remember, performance is the reverse of your execution time. So if you do performance y over performance x, what you end up with getting is execution time x over execution time y. Make sense? So the baseline is actually on the top. The modified one is actually on the bottom. So that's the only definition of speed up in computer architecture is execution time x over execution time y if you are talking about speed up of y over x. Okay, so that's the only definition, very, very important. Right, so today we have 2 equations already, right? CPU performance equation, the second one is speed up. Speed up of y over x must be the execution time of x over execution time y. And the reason is because performance y is in fact 1 over the execution time of y. So if you divided performance y by performance x, that's what you would get, right? Now, looking at this question, right? So machine X, if you check carefully, is indeed the same one as all previous 3 questions, 2 questions. So it would take 2.5 seconds to execute the program, right? And for performance Y, right? If for machine Y, right? If you check carefully, I believe my math is correct. So this is like 20% times 6 for type A, 20% times 3.
There should be 4.
What?
It should be 4. 10%.
Oh, it should be 4. Oh, okay. So I'm wrong. You guys are right, right? Okay, so this should be 3. That's fine. Okay, you guys are good. Okay. Right. So, but in reality, right? That's how you get the number. Okay, I will fix that. See, that's why you don't want to modify your slide too much every time. But my habit is that I like to update it because recently when I get processors, I started to get processor running at 40 others. So that's why I think I should update. But anyway, right? But at least I think everyone got how to calculate on this, right? All right, so that's the definition of speed up, y over x. But you know, sometimes, not just that, right? The numerical, the numerical calculation is just one aspect. But for performance programmers or software engineers, it's more important that, okay, your boss is giving you an assignment saying that, okay, our performance is worse. Like, for example, BART is not performing better than ChatGPT. Which part in BART should we consider change? So that's actually very important. And to know that, you have to know what could affect the performance equation and in what ways can you affect performance equation. So right now you are the programmer. So I really want to see if you know how effective are you in changing the performance equation. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, let's see. What do you feel? Okay, C is a popular answer, right? That means I don't know. So why don't you discuss with your friend to see how many you think as a programmer you can affect?
So. The other things are really.
Yeah,
So, don't argue with programmers, but yeah, I don't think that. That's not this. Yeah. So. I don't think that. Like, yeah. But free, you can't. Wait, no, that's not part. I see. Not directly writing. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I don't think that's. No, yeah.
All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so after discussion, okay, still, well, some people are leaning toward B, some people are leaning towards C. Okay, what do you guys think? What do you think as a programmer you can affect?
Well, so we were kind of discussing the open-ended nature of this question, because technically, we could, a programmer buys the hardware, and it affects everything, all of it.
Well, does programmer buy the hardware?
I mean,
If you are working for Google, do you buy the hardware?
That's true.
Right? So that's absolutely not, right?
So our thinking was kind of like, what is software and what is hardware? And programmer is more affects.
Okay, so when I say programmer, it's more pretty much like when you write your program, what can you change? What changes can you make to change the performance?
Okay.
So in this way, what do you have in mind?
Runtime, like.
So yeah, runtime less instruction. So instruction count is one thing, right? How about what others? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can write less, loading, like reading.
Mm-hmm.
More arithmetic.
Mm-hmm. So that will change
CGI.
the CPI, right? So what else?
You could also affect the CGI to control it, basically.
Okay, so you can do like manually loop on rolling, right? To change the CPI. Okay, what else? Right, so far every discussion is on the instruction count CPI, right? But I want to tell you one thing. You can also affect the cycle time. Indeed, and that will link it to your lab. So in the lab, you will do that a lot. But right now, I'm showing you examples. So we have this program, right? The left-hand side and the right-hand side. So tell me what these two code snippets are doing. Are they doing the same thing? Are they generating the same outcome? Will they generate the same outcome? No. Why not?
The initial indexing is different, so like, I guess my thought would be the index for the second one is off, so like when J is 2 and I is 0, you get access different elements in the array.
But do you guys all agree these two programs are identical in terms of the execution result? Yes, right? How about the computational complexity? The same, right? Both n squared. How about the instruction count? Should be the same, right? So, okay. So now, let me show you the thing. Okay, so for this demo, let's see. Okay, so oops, what happened? Okay, so the left-hand side is indeed the left-hand side. Well, so for this pieces of code, it's the whole program. So in the very beginning, I was trying to do some initialization, and there's nothing different. The main part is actually this, right? The main function that we are comparing against is indeed this for nested for loop, right? And to ensure to let you feel like, well, they are indeed generating the same result, I'm actually going to show you randomly pick one cell, and then you will figure out that would generate the same result. And for this particular program, if you check at this Jupyter Notebook cell, what I will do is that I will call a program called perf. And you will also be able to use this program, I believe, maybe, in your lab as well. So there's a program particular called perf. It will use something called performance counter, which most of the modern processor will provide, to count how many cycles, how many instructions that the program will execute. So as we all agree, right, these two programs should be pretty much identical to the number of instructions, complexity, and even the result. But let's run them together and let's run them one by one and see what's going on. And right now I am executing it. And now, okay, so as you can see, both of them would pick a random cell and generate 161 as a result. So they indeed generate identical result. Now, let's check the performance counter stat for the A version, which is the left-hand side. If you check the left-hand side, right, how many instructions are there being executed? About 16.5 trillion, right? How about the version B? Also pretty much 16.5 trillion. So in terms of the total number of instructions, they are about the same. Looking at the execution time, how much time it takes for version A? It's 0.8. How about version B? Is 1.28. A lot more, right? That's how the programmer changed the CPI. You can easily change the CPI, even though the algorithm is the same. Right? Complexity is exactly the same. However, the way how you traverse the loop will make a huge difference in the CPI. So this is a demo tell you that as a programmer, right, you guys are right. You can indeed change the cycle time. Sorry, the CPI. And let me see. Okay, yes, question?
So I was just wondering, so that's because in arrays they use like sequential memory accesses, and so in the second way we're doing it like kind of out of order, so that's why it's slower.
Well, yes or no. You forgot there is one thing called cache in your computer processors, which we will talk about in the next week. But that's actually pretty much aligned with the answer. And another one, right? So another one that give us the bizarre in the last one is that, well, look at this one, right? So the array sort example, that I gave you in the last lecture, right? If we enable the option, then the program is actually faster, right? You might say, well, what does that magic do, right? So we can also run the program again with perf stat. And you will see, right, in terms of number of instructions, if I disable option, like set the option equal to 0, then the number of instructions it takes is about 3 trillion, right? So you know, and compare against the other version is 3.3 trillion. So enabling the sort indeed increase the amount of instructions. So we are actually having a programmer create more instructions. However, again, this time programmer not only changed the instruction count, in fact, we also changed the cycle of instructions. So if you look at perf stat, its representation is somewhat flipped with our performance equation in a way that they use instructions per cycle instead of cycles per instruction. So if you don't enable the sort, it's actually instruction per cycle is actually 1.07 as 1.03 here. And however, if you enable the sort, the IPC would actually be 4, which means your CPI is 0.25, 4 times better. So what really makes the difference among these two programs is, again, the CPI, right? So you see the power as a programmer. Although intuitively, we think reducing the number of instruction count would help you get better performance. And that's the whole purpose of algorithm class or computational complexity teaching you. They are trying to teach you ways to reduce the total amount of operations that is necessary to solve a problem. However, here I already show you that's not always beneficial if all you care about is performance. Like this particular example, more instruction actually help you get better performance. But why is that? That will you will learn this later in the quarter. But for this particular program, right? If we check everything, right? This is an evidence that the programmer changed the CPI, right? And from this demo, I show you there's a tool called perf stat in Linux that allows you to do this kind of performance profiling. So, and if you are having a Mac, right, there is a tool called Instruments, and you can do time profiler on a Mac as well. And if you are having an Intel x86 PC running Windows, you can actually use Intel's Retune, although you have to pay. But there are so many ways you can get performance counter numbers and then allow you to know a lot of the details about like programmers' effect on a program. So that's why we as a it's very important that a programmer needs to know computer architecture, because it's not just about algorithm affecting your performance. The computer architecture does that too. All right, so before you leave the classroom, there are several important things that I want to let you know. So the next reading quiz will be due next Monday. And for each reading quiz, you will have 2 shots, a limited time, but we took the average, as we mentioned in the last quarter. And a lot of people on the outside were asking where to download slides. Check our website. If you want to take reading quizzes on Canvas, it's on Canvas. And Grayscope, I should update the slide. Grayscopes for submitting assignments. And if you want to check recording, I have a YouTube channel called Professor Musaki, right? Subscribe that. Click the bell, right? I don't sell things on the channel because I'm not allowed to. Otherwise, I should be able to make a lot of money. But anyway, so if you want to find lecture recording, that's the slide. Other than that, I will see a lot of you, I suppose, for the first lab lecture that's happening in about 1 hour and a half later, in the same room, I believe, right? All right, I will see you later. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day.
In love, fighting against all odds.